Hello learners, welcome to PECO Virtual School. My name is Kasirye Stephen and I'm going to take you through history and political education. History and political education for senior 1. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to define the terms history and political education. And still, you'll be expected to explain the relationship between history and the political education. On top of that, you'll be expected to have understood the importance of studying history and the political education. So let us have the introductory part of our work. That is the introduction. In primary, you must have studied social studies. Social studies has contents of history and geography. This year, you will learn about history as an independent subject. History as an independent subject. So it will not be comprising of work from the geography, from geography as a subject, and the other aspects as you used to study in primary, but as an independent subject. So what do you think the subject of history is all about? Okay, so when we talk about history as a subject in senior 1, it makes a comparison. It is the study of the past events. Okay, history is the study of the past events. It makes a comparison with the present in order to forecast the future. So when we study history, we study our past events, things that took place long time ago when we are not there. Okay, we compare them with the present situation in order to predict or to foretell or to forecast what is going to happen in the time to come, that is the future. Okay, and again, why do you think it is important to learn about our past events? Okay, why is it important for one to know about his past events? That is history. Okay, it is relevant, or it is a relevant subject since it helps us to find out and learn from our successes and failures of people, organizations, and nations. Okay, that is one of the importances. Then political education as another subset under history. Political education comes from 2 words. It is made from 2 words. Political, which is a set of activities associated with government of a country, stroke an area that makes decisions that affects the group. Okay, then education, which is the process of acquiring knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits by a facilitator teacher. Okay? Political education, which is a set of activities within a government or a country that makes decisions that affect the people. Education alone, we have said, it is all about acquiring knowledge, the knowledge we need in our daily life, the skills, the values, the different beliefs and habits by a facilitator or a teacher. The one who is giving you the knowledge is the facilitator or the teacher. Can you now try to give the meaning of political education? That is by combining the meaning of the word political and education. So what is the meaning? How can we define the term political education? Therefore, political education is the process of teaching learners about the politics of a group, a country, or organization where individuals belong. And when we learn the politics of that society where we belong, it prepares us for future political engagements at the group, organization, community, or national levels. It is sometimes called the study of civics. Okay? We have an activity, our very first activity, to test and see whether we have understood what we have so far covered. And you'll be required to note activity 1 in your notebook and find out the answer. So the first question and activity 1, have you been a leader or worked with a leader? Answer that one. Then question 2, where did you get leadership skills from? Question 3, what are some of the challenges that you faced as a leader? That is the end of our activity 1. The next task, we are going to look at the relationship between history and political education, how the two are related. Okay? History provides a background for political education. The two subjects both deal with humanity and have a relationship with society in terms of social, political, and economic setup. The only difference is that history deals with past events. Past events, things that took place long time ago, when you were not there, when I was not there. Okay? While political education deals mainly with current issues, one can call them current affairs, okay, things that are present. Okay, history and political education are both social sciences, okay, which means they are both studies of how societies operate. Okay, when you talk about social sciences, it is all about our society, how people in a given society behave or conduct themselves. Okay, so that is political education and history. History through time, while political education through a society's government. and its relationship within the citizens. Can you think of any other subject which addresses society's problems like history and political education? That is another activity you'll have to attempt. Now, next we are going to look at the reasons why we study history in senior 1 or in secondary. In primary, we said we are studying social studies, which was a combination of history and geography. But in senior 1, we are studying history as an independent subject. So we are going to look at the reasons why history is taught in senior 1. Okay? There is a good reason for you to study history and political education. Okay? The first importance: history helps us to understand change and manage change and also understand how the society which we live in today came into existence. Okay? It also provides the origin and the foundation of all subjects, of all the subjects you study in secondary. For example, subjects like physics, mathematics, biology, chemistry, and others. It lays the foundation, the starting point for all those subjects. Then another importance: history helps learners to develop the acquisition of knowledge and critical thinking, okay, which helps in developing citizenship and the constitutional knowledge. Okay, for you to be a good historian, you'll have to think about some issues. Okay, when you think about those issues almost on a daily basis, at the end of the day, at the end of your senior 1, at the end of your secondary life, you'll be a good critical thinker. You'll be different from other people who have never studied history. Okay? Then another importance: it provides lessons for the present by analyzing the past. Okay? It provides lessons for the present by analyzing the past. Okay? When you go to a school, most of you go to different schools, you must have heard or found out the background or the history of that school you went to. You first of all find out how that school is performing. Okay, so you base on that history, which is the performance of the school, and you join it. Okay, so if the history of the school is bad, the school is failing the students year after year, you can't go to that school. Okay, so you base on the good history of the school and you join it. Okay, so that is the other important part or aspect of history. Then, by studying history, you are prepared for further education and employment. The learners of history may later become lawyers, teachers, and some may become archaeologists. Okay? History is a job. That is what we are meaning there. When you study history, you can be a lawyer. Okay? You can be a teacher like me. You can be an archaeologist. And at the end of the day, you'll be paid for that task. You'll earn a living from that. Okay? You cannot study physics and you become a lawyer. Okay? You cannot study fine art and you become an archaeologist. You need history. Okay? For you to be prepared for such future careers. Then, another importance of studying history, it provides cultural awareness. Okay? Cultural awareness. Okay? Knowledge about our culture. The culture may be about the clan. How your clan is started. You may be coming from the monkey clan, for example. By studying history, you get to know how your monkey clan started, how you got your name, your surname you are having. Okay? Why your mother, your father are having those surnames. Okay? That is the culture part of it. Then let us look at political education as another independent aspect. Okay? What is happening to you is a result of a system believed and practiced by political leaders. Early political awareness and socialization can enable you adopt political views through democratic debates. This will help you to develop independent mind about political governance. Okay? What we are meaning there, most of the things that are happening to us in the societies we live in are determined by the political leaders who are heading us in our respective communities. If you are living in an area that is not having running water, it is your political leader responsible. In a community that is not having a hospital, okay, it is the leader responsible for the absence of that hospital. A school is another important aspect. If it is lacking in the community, it is the leader responsible. So when we get awareness about the politics, we can overcome such challenges that are happening in our society. Okay? That can be achieved through the debates we shall be conducting at school and in our different communities where we live. Okay? When we conduct debates, you will become politically aware and develop skills for future legislation and leadership. When you talk about legislation, it is all about making laws, amending laws that are used to govern our society, our organizations, our communities. Okay? So when you become politically aware, you develop skills, you acquire skills of how you are going to come up with laws that are going to govern your society. Then, political education prepares younger citizens for future democratic leadership and governance. You cannot jump in any position when you don't have a political background. Okay? You'll become a member of parliament, at least when you have ever been a class captain, when you are getting involved in political debates at school. Okay, that will help you to know how laws are made and what that office you have taken demands. Okay, still, political education prepares citizens for future multi-party politics due to different lines of thought. It prepares citizens, the citizens are us, you, for future multi-party politics. When you talk about multi-party politics, it is the situation where very many political parties are allowed to operate in a country. In Uganda alone, we have over 20 political parties. Okay? You have heard of NRM, you have heard of FDC, you have heard of NUP, Democratic Party, and others. So in a situation where all those political parties are allowed to operate, it is what we call multi-party politics. So by studying political education, we are going to be guided on how we are going to live in such a society that is full of political parties. Then, the ideologies of the political parties we choose to associate with often grow in our minds from early childhood. We should be knowledgeable about the different political affiliations to know the best form of democracy to associate with. By studying political education, we are prepared to choose the best political party, the one with good ideas, which we are calling ideology. Don't just jump on a political party and you say, me, I'm supporting DP or Democratic Party because it is what my grandfather was supporting. I'm supporting NRM because one of my elders was a leader or an employee of NRM. You should have a reason why you are choosing, why you are joining that political party. Okay? Then, the more politics discussed at school, the more you are able to seek political democracy in future. Democracy and politics will be discussed in a humane way at school. When you talk about politics, you'll be guided on how to choose a good political side when that time comes for joining active politics. Okay. Now that you have a fair background information about history and political education, let us have activity 2. Okay? Activity 2. We are now going to look at sources of history. Okay? Sources of history. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to classify the sources of history. That is one objective. The second objective, you will be expected to explain the primary sources of history. Number 3, identify the secondary sources of history. And then 4, describe the scientific sources of history. Okay, that is personal work that you'll have to do or to attempt in your notebooks. And the materials you need here, you'll need a textbook of history, you need a pen and a notebook, computer or a cellular phone, with the internet where possible. Instructions: use a handbook of Senior 1 History in this chapter. You can make reference to other related books. It may be a geography book, for example, the Atlas. Okay, you may need a map of East Africa, and it is in the Atlas book of geography. You can use it. And where possible, consult an adult. An adult may be your mother or your father. And at the same time, use the internet while doing the activity in this work we are going to have. Introduction. Historical source is the original information that contains important historical information. These sources inform us about history at the most basic level, and these sources are used as clues in order to study about our past events. As I was starting, I remember telling you that the history we study took place long time ago, thousands and millions of years ago, and none of us was there. So for us to get that historical information to determine the past, the present and the future, we use the sources of history to get to know what exactly happened. Okay? Now, this historical information can be obtained from sources like oral tradition. Okay? We shall have a detailed study about oral tradition as a source of history. We shall also look at archaeology, what they mean. We shall look at their definition, how they are important, and the disadvantages associated with them. Then there is another one called anthropology. Linguistics is the other. We have videos, we have written documents or records, we have museums, traditional folk songs, monuments, among others. Now, those sources we have mentioned there are classified or categorized into three ways. We have the primary source of form. We have the secondary source of form, and the scientific form Okay? Now, we are going to start with the primary sources. Okay? When you talk about the primary source, it is all about the first-hand information obtained from the persons who witnessed the historical event. When you talk about first-hand information, we are meaning the real information, the exact information from a person who was on ground. For example, when you talk about the independence of Uganda, how Uganda got independence, and you need to know about that, we may go to a person who was there when Uganda was receiving her independence, okay, who attended the occasion, okay, of the Independence Day. So that is the primary source. Here we don't depend on hearsays, we don't depend on rumors. True information, okay, we get historical information from people who were on the ground, from people who attended the event. Okay? These people provide first-hand evidence about what happened on that event, on that occasion. Okay? This makes them more accurate in providing the correct history to us because they attended the event. The common primary sources we rely on here include the oral tradition of storytelling, oral, where historical information is passed on from one generation to another, or from mouth to mouth. You sit with an elder who attended the occasion, with the person who attended the occasion. He tells you how the occasion started and how it ended, how the event started and how the event ended. That is oral tradition of storytelling. Another one is tape recorder. Okay, here the information is recorded. Okay, it may be on a DVD, it may be on a tape. Okay, and again another source we use here are photos to determine what exactly took place. Okay, lab reports, experiments that are carried out, observations, and others. Such information is acquired through the first person's accounts found in diaries, okay, letters, interviews that are conducted, speeches, and others. Okay, oral sources include oral testimony and oral tradition. Let us understand the two, oral testimonies and the oral tradition. When you talk about oral testimonies, are the first-hand accounts of people telling about themselves and their past experiences. The people who are having first-hand information, people who are having evidence of what happened. Somebody is telling you about independence and he was there in the 1960s when Uganda was getting independence. Okay, so the information here is usually recorded by historians in interviews and others are written down. Whereas oral tradition, the stories that have been passed down through generations by word of mouth. Here, the stories are not recorded anywhere. But we meet people and they pass on the information. And here you may find that some of the people who are passing on the information are not there. But when the information is passed on from one generation, it is passed on to another generation. Okay? You must have heard of the story of Chintu and Nambi. Okay? That story is moving on from one generation to another. That is what we call oral tradition. There is no one narrating that story of Chintu and Nambi. Okay? So the information moves from one generation to another. It has been moving many years ago. It is now with us, and even our children will find that information. That is what we call oral tradition. Hope learners, you have now grasped oral testimonies and oral traditions. And I guess you can relate the two. Okay? You can relate the two, and where possible, you can differentiate them. Let us now look at oral traditions. Okay? We have said oral tradition, the information is aired out, is given to individuals. Okay? We are seeing an elder there giving historical information, narrating maybe what happened in the past, and is giving it to the young ones who are seated and busy listening. Okay? Now, after looking at the oral tradition, we have an activity. Activities are assignments, okay, and they are set to test you whether you have understood what has been taught, and you are expected to attempt those assignments in your notebooks. So the first one is, why do you think the primary sources are most reliable sources of history? That is the first activity. Then secondly, what are the weaknesses of this source of information? Question 3. Suggest ways of overcoming weaknesses of this method. Okay? If you realize that it has some problems, weaknesses are problems, how can you overcome them? As a historian, if there is a problem, you are supposed to look for a solution for that problem. So you'll be expected to find out the solutions or how you can overcome them. That has been the primary source. Now let us look at the secondary source as another form of what? History. Okay? This is known as the second-hand information. Secondary sources are usually produced after an event has occurred. That word after an event has occurred. Here we depend on hearsays. I think this is what happened. This is what I heard from this person who attended. You were not there, and therefore you are not having the first-hand information. Okay? Second-hand information may be true or false because it is just reported. Okay? That source contains information that has been interpreted, commented on, analyzed, and processed from the original information. So now when we say that it is second-hand information, you now understand what we are talking about here. Something that has been interpreted, something that has been analyzed or commented on, something that has been processed, cannot appear in its original form. You understand that? Okay? You may have, say, a boy, and someone analyzes or interprets that picture of a boy and tells you that it is a picture of a girl. Okay? So that is the second information or the secondary form or category we are talking about. Okay. The common source of such information include historical research projects. Secondary sources are generally scholarly books and articles. Scholarly books are the books which are written by scholars. Okay? A secondary source interprets and analyzes the primary source, the one we looked at first, the first source that provides first-hand information. These sources are one or more steps removed from the event. Secondary sources may contain pictures, okay, quotes, or graphics of primary sources. Okay, people just assume of what happened. They just analyze. Okay, they just assume of what took place. Okay, what are the other examples of secondary sources you can give? Okay, we have figure 2.2 to 2.5. Okay, examples of secondary sources. In figure 2.2, it is a newspaper where we have the former president of Uganda, Milton Obote, is appearing in the newspaper. Okay? We said secondary sources can be in the form of newspapers, and the newspaper is there with the president or with the president. Okay. Then in figure 2.4, we have a quotation from Winston. Okay, and the quotation says, study history. Study history. In history lies all the secrets of statecraft. Okay, that is from Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was an American and was a leader of America. Okay, that is a secondary source, and we have said secondary sources appear in forms of quotations. Okay, the quotation may be from any person, not only leaders. It may be a church leader, may be a cultural leader like a king, may be a musician, okay, of your choice, any person. Then figure 2.5, we have computer research. We say the secondary sources contains information that has been researched by scholars. How do we research information? You can go to a computer, like how we are seeing that lady. She's researching information using a computer. You can go to Google and search something you want. Okay, the information you will get from Google, okay, about, say, President Museveni, about, say, Nelson Mandela. That is secondary information, because you have not got that information from the real person. Okay, you may use your phone, a smartphone, if not a computer, to research, and the phone is also there. Okay, you are seeing the phone, that smartphone, you can use it for researching. You can use this laptop, okay, and then record it down, what you have found, what you have researched from the computer. The lady is recording down. Don't just look at what you have seen on the computer. Note down for future reference. Okay, there we have activity 2. Describe a situation through which you can teach your guardian stroke parent about secondary source of historical information. Outline the benefits of using the secondary source of historical information. Question 3. What can be the challenges of such sources of historical information? You will be required to attempt those questions in your notebook. Every after a subtopic, we have an activity, and you are expected to do that work in your notebook. We say the sources or the forms of history are 3. We have looked at the primary source, we have looked at the secondary source, and now our last form, okay, is the scientific source of history. The scientific source of history. Okay, there we are saying science has relied on the findings of archaeology to trace history, to find out the past. The leading person under this study was called Dr. Ricky, with his wife Mary. Okay, archaeology is the study of material remains used by man many years ago. Remember, we have said that under the scientific source we rely on archaeology to find out history. Now we are understanding the term archaeology, and we are saying archaeology is the study of remains used by man years ago. How do we get those remains? What are the remains we are talking about? We shall get to know about those remains when we are having a detailed study about archaeology as a subtopic. Those remains are termed as fossils. The remains that are dug and found underground, we call them what? Fossils. Some of the material remains that are found deep underground after excavating are sometimes tools used by the early people. Those tools may include spears, bows, arrows, chisels, hammers, among others, which were used by those people who lived in the past. Okay, now look at figure 2.6. okay, people who study these fossils are called archaeologists. People who look for those remains, okay, The fossils, we said, are remains that are found deep underground after excavating. And the people who look for those remains, which we have called the fossils, are called archaeologists. Okay? Now, after excavating or digging deep underground, the archaeologist can find items like those ones that are appearing in the diagram. Okay? You can find spears, you can find the arrows, you can find bows, the hammers, the chisels, and others. Okay? And then archaeologists dig deep to excavate and study the artifacts, tools, pottery, sculptures, paintings, buildings, among others. They use scientific methods to evaluate their work. After digging deep and they get those fossils, they don't use their naked eyes to evaluate those remains. Okay? Because those remains or fossils, they don't appear in their original form. So they use scientific methods to evaluate, okay, to evaluate or find out more about those what? Those fossils. They may take the remains or the fossils to the laboratory and use science, okay, to find out more about that. If they are finding out, say, about people, and they have got a fossil, say a bone, they will take it to the lab. For example, if you find a bone deep underground or in the ground after excavating, and that bone has been there for years, it may be hard for you to tell whether that bone was for a human being or for an animal. Okay? You can only tell after taking that bone to the laboratory. The scientists evaluate and find out more about it. For example, Dr. Licky and the wife Mary, whose pictures are seen in figure 2.7 below, provide a good example of archaeologists in East Africa. Okay? That is Dr. Licky, a key archaeologist, and the wife Mary. Okay? They are known and remembered for having carried out key historical findings. Okay? Key historical findings. Some key excavations that took place in East Africa include Old Village in Tanzania, Bigobya Mugenyi in present day Zimbabwe in Masaka. Okay? In present day Zimbabwe and Masaka. Zimbabwe was now cut off from Masaka, and it is now a separate district. Okay? When you go to an area called Intusi in Remiyaga, that is where we find Bigobya Mugenyi. Okay? So some key historical excavations were carried out in such what? Areas. Then another one is Magos in Karamoja, which is found in northeastern Uganda. Okay? Then we have there activity number 3 about the scientific form. Ever after a subtopic, I said we are supposed to have an activity. And here is the activity about the scientific form. And as I said, note down these questions in your notebooks and look for answers. Don't just note them in the book and leave them there. So the first question is, explain the benefits of using the scientific method in finding out about our past. Okay? Then the other one is, other than archaeology, give other scientific methods we